Oh shit. What's going on, everyone? I just finished the Psycho franchise, and now it is time to start anew. What will it be? Hellraiser. A franchise that has gone on to spawn 11 sequels in total, and all kinds of talks about a reboot. There's still talks about a reboot to be done by David S. Goyer, who did the Dark Knight, and now let's talk about Hellraiser. This movie was written and directed by Clive Barker, who went on to direct and write all kinds of other stuff, and he wrote movies before this, but this is definitely the big one that stands out. When you think of Clive Barker, people think of two movies usually, Candyman and Hellraiser, and me personally, this is my favorite Clive Barker film of all of them. This one's just right up my alley. It's the late 80s, it's got a great slasher icon named Pinhead, who isn't utilized in better movies. He's in all kinds of crappy films like this franchise, unfortunately. He can't get a good movie, but this one's the best that he was in. And it's just a shame, too, because he's got such an iconic, scary look. If that guy was coming at you with hooks and chains just flying out of the wall to tear your ass apart in your soul, you'd shit your pants immediately. This guy looks awesome.
You solved the box. We came. Now you must come with us. Taste our pleasures.
Originally, this movie was supposed to be called Sadomasochist from Beyond the Grave. And then Clive Barker changed it to Hellbound, and then the producer said, nah, let's do Hellraiser, and the rest is history. Shockingly, this movie was made on a $1 million budget, but the special effects are so fantastic that you would think that it was like millions. Bob Keane, the special effects artist, he is up there with like Rob Bottin, who did like The Fog and The Thing. The guy is amazing. This guy did such great special effects, and we will get into it later. One interesting thing I found out was that this movie was supposed to be in a different country, but then the studios wanted it to be placed in the US, so they had like dub British voices to make it sound American, which is why Julia sounds kind of British at some points. Like she sounds like she's American, and then she sounds like she's British. So I guess that explains that. And unfortunately, the MPAA had their way with this movie. They made all kinds of cuts to it, but you wouldn't know because it's still pretty fucking bloody compared to Friday the 13th, part 5, 6, 7, 8 that came out around this time. Apparently, you're not allowed to spank girls in movies. There's some spanking that got cut out of the movie, which is just stupid. The MPAA needs to just fuck off. But anyways, let's solve this little puzzle box and open up the gates to hell in this week's Horror Franchise Wednesday.
Hellraiser.
Alright, so let's kick things off with the nitpicks and cons that I have with this movie, because it is not a perfect film. Trust me, but I know it's going to go downhill from here, so let's strap in for this bumpy ride. This is going to be a fun franchise to review, because I haven't seen 90% of them. I've seen the first one, the third one, bits of like 4, and I've seen the last one, Judgment, so that's it. Maybe parts of Revelations on TV at one point, but that's it. So this is going to be a fun experience. Now, my biggest problems with this movie is, one, Frank's acting and Kirsty's. She's okay, but then there's moments where she kind of like starts to slip into like hysterics when she has to get like scared and she's like screaming at Frank. It just sounds pathetic. And Frank's acting is just bad too. And it's just funny the way he says, come to daddy, come to daddy. The way he says it is just dumb. It makes me laugh.
Come to daddy.
Is it supposed to make me laugh? Because I don't think that's what they were going for. Now, the rules as to how to bring Frank back, and, how many bodies and what counts, like what blood, because this woman, Julia, has to keep donating blood to him by bringing him victims to kill, but why not just go to the blood bank or get get a freaking syringe, draw some blood, and give it to him? That's all he needs. And I like how one drop of blood brings him all the way back into this whole exoskeleton, some tissue there throughout, and then a whole body only adds veins and some muscle tissue, and then a whole nother body barely adds shit to that. So it's there's no continuity to that. There's no progression. I don't think Julia was casted properly. Like, she's supposed to be this beautiful woman who's very horny and likes to explore things in bed with Frank, because that's who he is too. And that's why he got the puzzle box in the first place, because he wants to feel what pleasures that it can bring him. And he got not what he was expecting. I wonder if they don't say whether he did like or not didn't like the torture. I bet he did in a way. But she's supposed to be this beautiful woman who's cheating on her husband, and she's supposed to be able to go to bars and easily pick up guys because she's just so gorgeous. And every time she goes to a bar, men are just constantly flocking to her, like, hey, babe, you shouldn't be drinking alone. And it's like, and she's attracting the most unattractive men. And I think it's because she's unattractive. Like, she's not that attractive at all. She's like, sorry, a 5 at best. So to me, it just wasn't believable how easy, like, as soon as she would sit down in the bar, like, oh, here's a guy. And she'd do it again and again, like, all within a couple of days. Like, it's so easy to be a woman and pick up guys. It's like, if this movie was the reverse, and it was about a guy who had to go out and get women to, like, fuck him, and he was like her, a 5 at best, like me, like, if it was me, and I had to go out and seduce women back to my house to feed them to my dead girlfriend upstairs who's just trying to get her flesh and bones back, I'd be like, sorry, babe, you're going to be this forever because there's no fucking way I can take anyone home. It's just not going to happen. I feel like they should have explored her relationship with her actual husband, Larry, but they don't. So it's just like you're sitting there thinking the whole time, like, why is she with him? There's never a moment of good chemistry between them. So you're stuck scratching your head like, man, bitch, just leave. Why are you with him? And like, he's like watching boxing and she's just sitting there like miserable out of her mind, contemplating like, do I want to feed him to Frank or do I not? It's like, if you're unhappy, do us all a favor and just leave, okay? Quit prolonging shit. This movie wastes a lot of time with this like this second storyline regarding like Kirsty and her boyfriend. And it doesn't go anywhere necessary. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't help the story. It doesn't drive it forward. It doesn't add comedy. It doesn't do shit. It's just like there. Like there's like even like a random scene where she's just like walking through town. And then she's working at a pet store. She sees a random guy eating crickets. And then she's making out with this guy at a subway station. And then she's giving him googly eyes at the dinner table, like all in love. And then she's spending the night at his apartment. And then he comes to her hospital room and she's gone. And then he follows her to the house and picks her up when everything's done and completed. Like, he's never needed. He doesn't do shit. So all of it could have just been erased. It's just wasted time. It kind of drags the pace in the first 30 minutes down every time it like goes to like their relationship, which is just so uninteresting. And there's just no interesting characters. There's no like character study. This movie is all about just like it's Julia's movie, really. It's Julia trying to get back with Frank because she thinks he's a better lay and she just wants to fuck him again. So she needs to feed all these guys to him, and then by the end of the movie, it's all for naught. Frank is just a selfish bitch. He's basically seducing her like, yeah, I can give you that pleasure again, so go get me bodies and I'll fuck you again. So she's doing it, and then he ends up, getting rid of her later on, unapologetically, like accidentally kills her and just goes like, oh, don't take it personal, whatever. So, I don't know, it's just like, there's no interesting characters. Kirsty, I wanted to know more about her. Like, why doesn't she get along with Julia? What happened to her mom exactly? She's dead, how? And what's her relationship like with other people? Like, I don't know, there's just like no characters to attach yourself to or give a shit about. You're just watching Julia take victim A, B, and C to the house, and then Kirsty she catches it, and then she runs away, and then she has to come back to get her dad, and blah, blah, blah. And my last nitpick will be that there's very poor digital effects, like CGI of the time type shit, like the green or yellow flashing lights when the Cenobites die, and Kirsty, she all of a sudden is like a puzzle box wizard that she can like solve it very quickly and kill the Cenobites, and they like burst into like yellow balls of light. It just looks bad when you're watching it today. So that's my last negative. Now the hottest chick in this movie, of course, is Kirsty. I don't get to know too much about her, unfortunately, but I heard she comes back in the sequel, so maybe I'll get to know more about her, and hopefully she's a better, interesting character and better acted. And the Clapper Award for Best Scene is when Kirsty opens up the box for the first time in the hospital room, and she encounters that monster who's clearly on a freaking like stroller thing. You can see the wheels, and then she sees Pinhead and the Cenobites for the first time, and I love the dialogue in that scene. And you get all kinds of classic one-liners from Pinhead, like,
Oh, no tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering.
now on to the positives. The thing that everyone can take away from this movie is the practical effects by Bob Kane. They are bar none better than most films today, and back then, clearly. Like, I put this up there with The Thing. That's how great they are. They are just so fantastic. When you see Frank coming to life out of the floorboards, his legs coming out, his brain forming on the ground, and then his skeleton attaching to the brain, it just looks fantastic. And it doesn't stop there. There's so many practical effects in this movie. You even see pieces of Frank's head that Pinhead's putting together like a puzzle. Great shit. Now let's talk about the Cenobites. I think that the makeup and the looks of them are all very unique and creative, eerie, and you wouldn't want to meet them ever. I love that they're all different. You got the teeth chatterer, which is probably my favorite one. Next to Pinhead, he's got the nails in his face. You got the fat, chubby guy with like the eyes stitched together, like that guy in Saw 4. And then you got the chick with the throat torn open and like nails going like through her nose, and then like wires around her head. And then I think there's only like 4 in this one. Then they kind of like they expand it later on, and then they diminish it or they expand it again. But these are such great, iconic looking characters, and it's a shame that they're not in better movies and they're not utilized more. I also like some of the set designs and the ways there's some cool visuals, especially when you go into like the torture chamber and when rooms kind of like morph into like hell, and she opens the gates to like a different world, and like the hospital room door, like the wall opens up and then the monster comes in, the way like a blue light will like shine through like holes in the wall. There's so many cool visuals, and honestly, my favorite shot, I'll give that award away. The best shot in this movie is Kirsty's dream sequence. I like the dream sequence here, all the feathers, just the aesthetic of it. It's creepy. You got like a baby crying, and there's like a bloody corpse on a table or a bed. I just like the way that scene looked. In the whole like torture room, the way that place looks, all the like hooks hanging, like the spinning columns, and like that flesh and blood just hanging off of hooks. This movie is bloody and so just dark and sinister, and I love it for that. It's got a great even tone. It's never a comedy. It never really makes you laugh except for when Frank says, "Come to daddy, come to daddy." I like the church bell music that plays every time the Cenobites are arriving or they're doing something or just whenever. I like the music attached. It's very ominous, and it lets you know that you're doomed and your time's coming. I like that this movie, unlike other horror movies, isn't just a typical final girl, discovering all kinds of bodies and then like, group of teenagers and they all get picked off one by one. It's completely different. It's not a typical demon movie or a typical exorcism movie. It's a movie about lust and love, like a woman just trying to bring back a lost one who she misses and wants to be with again. So she's going to do whatever she can to bring him back. And I like that the story's different. So final thoughts. This movie is a dark, brutal, awesome classic. It's not the best movie ever, but it's definitely a classic that you should definitely watch. Everyone should see it at least once in their life. It's got great practical effects. It's got a decent story, different, unique story from your typical slasher. Great looking Cenobites, iconic looks, definitely creepy, and if you're young, especially, it should definitely creep you the hell out. As an adult, they don't look that scary, but if you met them in person, if this was really happening, holy shit, it would be the worst thing ever. So when it comes to Hellraiser, this is a hell of a scary movie to watch, so go out and buy it. Now let's go into a more in-depth spoiler discussion. First up, I think a scene that stands out the most is when Larry gets his hand nailed. He gets that nail that drags across his hand, and this is what resurrects Frank. And I think it's funny and ironic that he gets nailed at the same time as Julia is thinking about getting nailed. Like, she has all these flashbacks of her getting screwed by Frank at the same time that Frank is being nailed. So she's getting nailed in her mind while he's getting nailed physically with the actual nail. So I just thought that was kind of funny. Wanted to point that out. And yeah, we get Frank, he buys the cube, he wants to get sexual pleasure from pain and whatnot. gets way more than he bargained for, and then Pinhead puts the pieces of his face on the table. Creepy ass practical effects, great, awesome set design with the torture chamber. And then Frank, he requests more blood, and Julia doesn't know about blood banks. She doesn't ask questions. She should get the rules specified. Julia, she brings over this victim and she hits him right in the face with a hammer, and it's so brutal, man. Like, it got cut. Like, she hits him in the head with a hammer, and like there was supposed to be a shot of like the claw in his head, but she hits him right across the face, and like you see his jaw just completely dislocated, and his teeth all bloody. It's awesome effects. And there's even like rats getting fucked up in this movie. There's like a shot of like 3 rats nailed to the wall. Frank, he walks over to Julia when she's like sleeping with Larry, and he skins a rat and like flaps it open, and like all the innards are there. And Frank's a vampire basically. One little funny like nitpick I could say is that they actually have this weird suction noise that sounds like someone took like a recorder to like their cup and like sucked the last remaining juice out of it, and it sounds like a straw sucking. So it was just kind of like, really? That's the sound effect they chose? So yeah, this is almost like a vampire movie, you could argue that. And apparently 9 pints of blood isn't enough, which is just ridiculous. This is stupid to point out, but Andrew Robinson in this movie, who plays Larry, he was in Child's Play 3, and he whistles a whole lot better in this one than he does in Child's Play 3. And then we get Kirsty, who meets Frank, and he's like, come to daddy. So I guess this means that Frank used to molest his own niece. It's like, why didn't they just disown him? Why are they even going back to Frank's house if he, like, do they know he's dead or gone? Like, it never establishes that. It's just kind of like they take the house because it used to be Larry's mom, and then it was then Frank's after the mom died, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, why are they there? It just makes no sense. Why would they even try to get back in touch with Larry's brother Frank, if he was a fucking pervert molesting the niece? And then Kirsty takes the box and she escapes, and then she like passes out for some reason, and then she wakes up in the hospital, and the nurse is watching flowers bloom on a TV because that's entertaining to her, I guess. I'd rather watch paint dry. And then we see the hallway monster, and it's clearly on like some 4-wheel like board. You can see the wheels behind it turning. Like they should have shot that a second time, or just edit that out. And here's the thing about that sequence is way too long. Like, from her like encountering the monster and like getting back to her room is a good minute at least. And that shouldn't be that long. It should be like a 20-second gag at the most. And then the Cenobites, they come to pick up Kirsty, and she's like, you know, Frank, he escaped you. And it's like, how did you know that? Like, she knows Frank's in her attic, and she knows that Frank likes that box, and she touches the box, and then these monsters come and they want to torture her. So I guess she just quickly was like, okay, well then maybe they fucked him up and that's why he looks like that and he escaped. Is that how she put that together? Because Frank never tells her the situation and what happened to him. So how she was able to quickly put that together, I don't know how. It just seems like a stretch. Like, how did you put that together? And then when she says, you know, like, Frank escaped you, and they're like, no, he didn't. You're a liar. No one can escape us. And it's like, how the fuck do you not know that Frank escaped you? And he's been worried the whole movie, like, hurry up, Julia. I need more bodies because they're going to come back any moment and kill me again. So it's like, how do they not know that he's gone? And when she says he's gone, they should be like, hold on a sec. And like, teleport back to the place and be like, oh shit, he is gone. And then teleport back and like, all right, you're right, he is gone. Can you show us where he is? But instead they're like, you're lying. We want to hear it from his own lips that he is at where you say he is. They could have just easily found out that the one guy that they're torturing, they can only do it to one person at a time who has the box. And Frank's the only one who's had it. So he was the only one they've been torturing lately. Unless there's multiple boxes. But that's not established yet in this franchise that I know of. So it's just one box. How do you lose one person? How can you not keep track of one person? It would have been funny if Pinhead's like, wait, what? One escaped? And then turned to the fat Cenobite and like, see? This is why we don't let you stay in charge. I like how Kirsty never realizes that Larry, her dad, has like blood all around his face because Frank took Larry's skin and like is wearing it perfectly and it just fits him perfectly and now he has his voice. That makes no sense. You can't explain that one. But she like never questions what's wrong with her dad's face. She's just in such a hurry to get the hell out of there. She's like, Dad, oh thank God you're alive. And what's up with your face? Like what's that? Like she never asked about it, and it's just mind-boggling. Like how do you not notice that? That would be the first thing I say. Like what the fuck is up with your face? But yeah, Julia apparently just changed her mind on a whim. Like she's at one moment it was like, don't kill Larry, Frank, and then the next scene was like, all right, kill him. I don't want him no more. He's just watching boxing. I like that Kirsty, after successfully hiding from Frank, as soon as Frank leaves the room, 10 seconds later, she goes into the hall on like the third story of this building and just starts sobbing and crying in the middle of the hall with her back to like these other doors where Frank could be leaving to attack her at any moment, and he does. But she's crying for a good 30 seconds out loud. Like, you think he left the house completely? You're stupid. Then Frank gets tortured a second time. Man, that would suck. To get tortured to death twice. That would blow. And just such an iconic scene. All the hooks coming out. Like 5,000 of them. They just like hook him to every single like arm and just corner. All his elbows, his face, his eyebrows. Everything has a hook in it. And his face is all stretched out. And then he just says, Jesus wept. And then he gets torn apart. And of course, the MPAA had this cut down. It's like one frame of him like exploding. It's just very quick. You blink and you miss it. But it's still awesome when you see it. And then for some reason, at some point, the Cenobites, they put Julia's corpse on the bed. She died on the stairway. And then she's just on the bed later. Which I guess ties into part 2. Because I heard in part 2 she comes back. And then she gets resurrected from the bed. But then somehow Kirsty knows how to solve this puzzle box very quickly to get rid of the Cenobites. And the first one she kills is Pinhead. I guess this is before he's like the main person that we want to see. So they kill him first, then the teeth chatterer, then the throat one, and then the fat one doesn't even get killed by the box. Like she uses the box to get rid of the Cenobites, but then when it's time to get rid of the fat one, a piece of debris just falls and for some reason, after Frank dies, the whole house just randomly decides to start turning into the poltergeist house, and it's like starts crumbling and just fire erupts out of nowhere, and so like falling debris hits the fat Cenobite, and then he's never seen again. So that killed him? That just doesn't make sense to me. Like she should have solved it again. I mean, she does it to get rid of that fucking hallway monster, too, after that. And again, when the hallway monster pops up, they drag the sequence out a good, 2 minutes. It shouldn't be that long of a struggle. And if it does last that long, somebody should be dead by now. I like how after the whole house is burnt down to the ground, the only thing remaining is just one stool. Just one little chair that's just on fire sitting there on top of ashes. It's like, really? That's the one thing that's still surviving the fire? And then the creepy homeless guy who we've been seeing sprinkled out through this movie at random times, especially with Kirsty. Like he's been following Kirsty around. He picks up the box out of the fire and then he turns into a fucking bone dragon demon and flies away with the box to take it to the seller to sell it to a new guy for the next movie. That makes no sense. Why is he there? He's the retriever. He's the watcher of the box. It's his job to keep an eye on it. If that's true, why was he always stalking Kirsty? Frank is the only one who has had the box throughout 80% of the movie, and then Kirsty has it. So what is that homeless guy supposed to represent? I know he's a demon, but what is his job? Just to retrieve the box? And that's it? But why was he following Kirsty 3 times in this movie throughout the pet store and then on her way to the boyfriend's house or whatever and then some other place? He's just sprinkled in and then at the very end it's oh, he's a demon. Whatever. It's just weird. That's another thing that could have just been erased. The movie should have just ended with the bar stool on fire. That's it. Her and her useless boyfriend who didn't need to be in the movie, they could have been just sitting there looking at the ashes, and then all of a sudden she sees the box, and then maybe it sparkles, and then it's the end. Just a small hint at a sequel, some other way to end it. But this whole demon thing, it makes no sense. Like I said, he wouldn't be following Kirsty if he's the box watcher. the box guard dog, she didn't have the fucking box. Frank did. So I just don't understand the homeless guy in this movie. Take that out. Take Kirsty's boyfriend out. And then, yeah, that's good. That's good progress right there. But yeah, I don't want to ramble on too long. This is going on way too long, so I'm going to end it right here. Alright, so the Mr. Hatter Award for Best Kill will go to Frank, who gets his face and whole body ripped to pieces. And the Mr. Twig Award for Lamest Kill will go to Larry, who dies off camera. He's just a bloody corpse on the ground. And those are my thoughts on Hellraiser. Let me know what you thought about this classic in the comments below. Very excited to continue this franchise with all the other ones because I have not seen them, so this is going to be fun to go through. Cannot wait. Keep your eye out for my Stitches review if it hasn't dropped already. And on my birthday, coming up next week, a special video for you. So keep an eye out for that. But thank you so much for watching this. Hit the like button if you want to show me your support. And you can become a subscriber today if you aren't already by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And until next time, auf Wiedersehen.
Yeah.